Welcome back to Alliant University Inside the Session podcast. We are back at it, myself and Cheryl, and we got a show for you today. Y'all need to buckle up, okay? Buckle up, buttercup, because we're going on a journey. If you've noticed, throughout our time through this podcast experience, we have been finding guests and bringing guests in to talk about their lived experience, talk about their expertise. And we have someone here that we're bringing in onto the show to talk about community mental health and advocacy. We're talking about mental health. I mean, we're recording this during Mental Health Month. So therefore, you have access to learn more about mental health no matter where you are in your career, in your profession, personally or professional. So, Dr. Fisher, how are you? What's the latest in your world?
I'm great, Dr. Branch. Having a great week. We just got back from commencement. Whoop, whoop, because what we do is get these folks out, launch, doing the work that we need them to do, right? Which is what we're going to talk about today with our wonderful guest, Dr. Kristen Curry. And I'm going to let her introduce herself here in just a second. But one of the things I like to do when we get started is talk about what's happening in the news. And what's happening in the news and everywhere else in the world is the fact that the programs that are offering mental health services are being defunded. The programs are going bankrupt, and the access to programs is getting harder and harder for communities. So today we get to speak with Dr. Kristen Curry, who is going to give us an inside scoop on her experiences, partnerships, any tips and tidbits she can offer us as counselors and counselor educators on this phenomenon. So welcome, Dr. Kristen Curry.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm Dr. Kristen Curry, obviously. It's been said a few times here. But I work, here with the program at Alliant, and I'm also in community mental health, as Dr. Fisher pointed out there. I've been in community mental health for several years. Oh, wow. I'm about to date myself, but almost 2 decades now. So it's been quite a while. And so I have a lot of experience and background there at the nonprofit level, at the government level, at the academic level, and, just as a consumer as well as a provider. So there's a lot of variation that comes with that. And so really happy to talk about this today. Looking forward to the conversation.
Dr. Curry also is a graduate of our Master's in Clinical Counseling
Yes.
program. So as an alum, we've got talent through talent through talent here, folks. So just got to put that plug in.
I love
Go
it.
ahead,
Yes,
Justin.
plug away, plug away. So if you could, tell us a story. How did you get into this profession and what made you continue? 2 decades in, you're still here, you're still thriving, you're still smiling. So what is it that got you here and that keeps you here, if you don't mind sharing with us?
Sure. So, working in mental health has been something that I've wanted to do for a really long time. It actually started when I was in middle school. And I remember this very vividly. There was one fellow student who had what we would call a meltdown, right, in class. Class had to be evacuated, things like that, because the response to an image on a National Geographic magazine triggered their own trauma experiences. And this student happened to be a refugee immigrant at the time. And so I remember thinking to myself, what happened to her that was so severe and so bad that one picture has brought all of this on, because she was one of the sweetest people that I knew at the time. And so that curiosity in me sparked, like, something is wrong. Something really bad happened to her. And that's where it started for me, with wanting to understand mental health, how people navigate it, what it means, what it looks like, and how can I help? What do I need to know, right? Because if something as simple as a magazine cover can trigger that kind of response, we have to do better, right, at helping folks and getting them there. So that's really where my journey started. It ebbed and flowed over time, right? I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I knew I wanted to do something in mental health and helping professions. So kind of going through the whole gamut of, do I want to do psychology? Do I want to do counseling? Do I want to do, social services? And realistically, where I landed is a little bit of all of that. So being a clinical counselor, we get to do a little bit of all of that. And so that's where I'm at now. I continue to do it for the very same reasons, right? You see needs, you see gaps, you see things that people don't always see or they choose to ignore. And that keeps me going. That's what drives me in this community mental health field, is that there's always a need out there. The needs are always changing. And for some reason, the gaps tend to get bigger.
Could you tell us more? Like that's a whole that's a whole podcast right there. If you don't mind, tell us about these gaps.
Yeah, sure. And it goes back to kind of something that Dr. Fisher was speaking to about the defunding of programs, and programs are shutting down. The community resources are sparse as it is when it comes to mental health. And, I'm in California. So out here, we have quite a few community mental health resources, but even that's not enough. And in even more rural settings, it's not enough. And we're having a larger population of transgenerational trauma, transmigration trauma, refugee trauma that's coming into our country and around the world. It's a global issue. And the services just are not there. The funding isn't there. People have to be able to pay their bills at the end of the day. As much as we would like to do this work for free all the time, we can't. It's unrealistic, right? And so the positions are, the need is there, I should say, but the funding is not, the services are not, and they're getting thinner and thinner, especially in our current political climate in this country. It's getting much thinner, and that's of grave concern because, as we all know, the world is a little bit upside down right now. And so the need isn't going to decrease anytime soon. It's going to continue to increase. However, the availability of services is continuing to decrease. So it's a bigger gap that's happening there.
I have a curiosity. So as I'm sitting here, just kind of jotting some thoughts, one of the thoughts I had is how do you see organization, community-based partnerships? How do you see them trying to fill those gaps? Because as you said, the need is getting greater and greater. The resources are getting less. What are some of the ways that you're seeing folks attempt to address this?
Yeah. Um, Free labor is becoming a bigger market,
Uh, mm, mm,
right?
mm.
You have a lot of folks that are taking advantage of, let's say, our students, right? They're taking advantage of
Ooh,
that, which our students need the training, which is wonderful. I get that. But there's not enough of them and not enough experience there to really serve the amount of need that is out there. So free labor is something that is happening a lot. Volunteer work, folks are getting trained. We're seeing more and more every day modalities that folks can implement to help kind of put band-aids on mental health for folks that aren't necessarily mental health clinicians, right? We're looking at stuff that folks can do that have maybe lay positions or, that are working in communities that have some experience but don't have the formal training. So you're seeing a lot of that happening, which is great. It's great. It's like triaging. We can get folks in, we can get them packaged up a little bit, but long term it doesn't work, right? We know that long term we need a little more support and more services out there. So that's what I'm seeing happening right now is there's a lot of free labor happening and caseloads are getting bigger. The folks that are willing to do the work are doing too much work, and burnout is coming.
So if you could, because that's what I was hearing throughout what you were sharing, is because there's so much work and there's not a lot of resources support, that means a lot of people are doing double time, triple time when it comes to work, especially for new clinicians. I'm curious, how have you been able to overcome compassion fatigue and burnout, and what are some tips and tools to help the newbies, the new generation that's coming in to prevent compassion fatigue and burnout? What comes to mind for you?
A lot of consultation, support, colleague debriefing, peer debriefing, right? Intentional self care. We scream it to our students all the time: self care, self care, self care. But we know that it's not often practiced. It's not practiced in the way that it doesn't get the attention it deserves, right? And so that's where, for me, it's really important. I hold days that are sacred. I hold time, windows of time that are sacred, that like nothing else can enter this time because this is my time to reconnect with me and the people around me and to disconnect from that community work and the bigger problems. Sometimes it means just shutting the news down, shutting off all media and, sitting with my husband and having a conversation. That is reconnecting me back to me and what's important in my world and being able to let go of the things that are around me. So it's really just finding time to do something that fits in your world and makes sense to you, but brings you back to your point of center. And that's not
Hmm.
always been easy. I've experienced burnout in the past. I've left jobs because of burnout. That's a real thing. It's not a matter in this field, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when, right? And how you manage it, how you navigate it. And I don't think we prepare our students well enough for that. I think they think if it's burnout is coming, then I need to stop and do something else. Maybe, but sometimes it means just taking a break and taking a step back for a minute and regrouping.
So this platform, this podcast is the place and space to have these conversations. And I want to dive a little bit deeper. We're in the basement already. So I appreciate your vulnerability. I appreciate your authenticity. And for
Going
those
in
who
the
don't know,
basement.
maybe new, for those who are maybe new to the show, I have 3 levels, 3 pillars, 3 parallels. Everything is in threes for me. Who we were, who we are becoming. And then when it comes to your house, the attic, the living room, the basement. Attic is where you spend most of your time, which is in your head. Living room is where you are presently, but it's hard to be present from focus on the future of the past. And then the basement, that's the place we don't like going because there's a padlock on the door and all things that happen to us from birth to where we are now, we throw in that basement and we lock it up. But with Dr. Curry, what you're sharing is number one, your vulnerability, your authenticity, you've done some work. So therefore, we can have a conversation related to the basement to share with others who may not have experienced what you've experienced related to compassion fatigue and burnout. So 2 questions, twofold. What was that experience like for you experiencing compassion fatigue and burnout and then making a really tough decision to leave a role, leave a position? And then the other is on the other side of learning, because it's a skill set, what I hear, it's a skill set to learn how to take care of yourself. That's a skill set, especially as a helping professional. So if you could dive into both of those lanes for us related to this basement work, because we in here. Let's get it.
Oh, yeah. So there was a lot of bumps in the road, right? So burnout and compassion fatigue didn't happen overnight. It was building. It started with a job transition. So like a lateral position, just a different community, different population, but same work, same trauma work, same therapeutic work, all of those things. Well, that was where burnout was beginning, right? And compassion fatigue was beginning. And so making that change was helpful in a sense as it gave me a little more time. But then ultimately it comes. It's just too much trauma work, too many stories. I started working with children thinking, okay, I'm going to work with children. This is going to be a change for me from adults with severe mental illness to working with children. And children and trauma is something that I can navigate. Yes, it's something I can navigate, but I also have this huge heart for children. I come from an education background, large family, lots of children. And so for me, working with the kids, it was really difficult to separate what was happening in their world and their stories from absorbing that, right? Because we have to hold that space for our folks. And so it was really difficult and challenging for that. And so that's where it really started to hit me the hardest. And I had to just walk away because it came on to where it was like, I can't even navigate this anymore. I have to just completely shut down and regroup and refine myself. I have to walk away from hearing all of these horrible stories, becoming tearful anytime I heard any type of story, even if it was on the news, a movie. There was movies I couldn't watch, stories I just couldn't hear because it was just too much. And so really it took me stepping away it was about a year, realistically stepping away from that entirely and doing something completely different, which I still enjoyed. It was still in the mental health realm, but it was more school counseling based, more academic based, kind of just little, behavioral issues, things like that. The lighter stuff, not the heavy stuff. But to be able to step away and take that time to really breathe, figure out what I needed, and really find ways to take care of myself because I was going hard. I was pushing hard. I was doing the work. I was burning the candle at both ends, trying to, do as much as I could in the communities that I was working in. And so I had to just shut down and start over, basically. And I come back stronger. So taking that year was really important. It helped me to identify what works for me, what I need for me, how intentional I do need to be with self-care. That self-care doesn't always mean taking an hour at the gym 3 times a week. It could be taking 5 minutes at the end of every shift or 5 minutes in between the most difficult clients, right? And finding that little bit of space for me in a day that's otherwise very heavy with others.
Powerful,
Oh,
powerful stuff.
mm.
Cheryl, jump in. What you
N-
got?
No. I was just sitting there thinking, honestly, reflecting on how one of the things that I've always worked with trauma. And one of the things that a mentor told me early on is, first of all, remember that you're not the savior. So remember what's yours to hold on to, if you will, and remember what's yours to let go of. You're not the savior. And so at the end of each session, I had created my own kind of ritual, mantra, prayer, whatever it is that you want to call it, where I was able to let go of this individual, this child, this family, in a way that felt like tying a bow on the session. Like, okay, we finished our time together, our work together, and here's the bow until next time. So I am curious. You talked about having the 5 minutes in between? Were there any certain kinds of things that you did in those 5 minutes, or give some examples of how you did that self care for our folks listening?
Yeah, it was actually a 5-minute guided meditation. It was a thing on my phone. It was an app that I could just click on it and it was a woman's voice and it was very soothing. And she would just kind of walk you through this 5-minute, literally start to finish 5-minute guided meditation. And that was enough to get me out of my own head in that, space and back into the space that I needed to be in, the healthier space that I needed to be in. So it was literally a 5-minute meditation. I started implementing it with coworkers too at the site. So it would be like, okay, here's this 5-minute meditation. We can do it as a group or we can do it individually, however you'd like to do. And at first folks were doing it as a group. And then they kind of spread apart, started doing it on their own. They're like, I use this in between other sessions because we would do it once at the end of the day before going home. And they started using it in between sessions as well and started doing it on their own. And it really was helpful.
And that's that debriefing that you were
Yes.
talking about,
hmm
really being intentional about debriefing. Thank you. I love that. Jason, you started to say something.
Yeah, this is such a unique experience and parallels because I feel as though all of us can relate to burnout, capacity, been there, done that, t-shirt subscriptions and everything else. So now being on the other side of it is developing healthy self-care strategies and support, which I think is great. And I want to go a little bit deeper and further because what I also hear is this can be inevitable for a lot of clinicians because we don't know. And it is something that impacts us mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually, the whole nine. So as a therapist, what does it mean? What does it look like for a therapist to consider therapy themselves? Is that a thing? Is that something we do, something we can do? Any thoughts about that?
That is something we must do. I don't think it's a thing that we can or should do. I think it's something that we must do. Any therapist or clinician has to be a consumer at some point. It just is what it is. It's the healthiest way to not just understand your client and kind of their position, but to get to know yourself and get to know where your pits are, right? And how to fill in those pits or how to navigate around them if you need to. I think it's just something that we must do. I know we don't require it here in program, we encourage it, but I think a requirement might be something to consider in the future.
I would agree 100%. I would agree 100%. Because to me, there's three to everything is in threes for me. Y'all got to excuse it. Okay. Everything is in three. And to me, there are three types of clinicians, in my humble opinion. Number one, horrible ones. We ain't got to talk about them because everybody already talking about them. Two, you got good ones who just do enough. And then you have great ones, which is everybody here, because the therapists that are great are the ones willing to do the work on themselves. And that's exactly what you're talking about, which to me is it's optional, but a lot of helping professionals don't because we don't have to. I don't have to look within, and I care more about helping other people. I'm not even looking at me. So I really appreciate you sharing that and just humanizing it. It's just humanizing. We all got stuff. And just because I'm helping somebody doesn't mean my stuff goes away. And I feel like a lot of helping professionals, if I just put my energy towards helping everybody else, I'm okay. What's in the basement will just stay in the basement. And what I hear from you is no, it's a must. It's a requirement. It's something that you have to be willing to do in order to become great. That's what I hear.
And one of the things that I always say to the students is a good therapist has a good therapist. It's just plain and simple. And the reason, and just the fact that even though we understand the process and go, oh gosh, I'm not sleeping for days and I'm having these intrusive thoughts about my client's stories. Oh, I must be experiencing some vicarious trauma. Just because I can intellectualize and conceptualize that does not take away the fact that I'm experiencing that and I need to treat that. I need to be in a space where I can have somebody go, hey, this is what I'm seeing. Are you seeing that? And what are you doing about that? So what I hear all of us agreeing on is get your own therapist.
Y'all
Make
heard it
it
here
happen.
first. Y'all heard it here first, okay? If you're listening to this right now, you don't have a therapist, this is your commercial, okay? This is your Saturday morning special. Get you a therapist. You're a helping professional. You can use a therapist. If you've been working with your therapist for a while, y'all kicking having a good time, you're not paying for a therapist, you're paying for a friend. You're not supposed to be having that much fun in therapy, okay? It's fun and it's work. It's hard. You have to do the work. So, Dr. Curry, thank you. Thank you so much for sharing all this. And I want to go to another place and space related to the compassion fatigue and burnout, what leads to that, and then the treatment piece with therapy. I'm curious, this belief system, and this is for new clinicians, people working in, people that have been in the field for years, this belief of it's my responsibility to save the world. It's on me to save every client I work with. I got to do it. And if they fail, that means I fail. Just curious to hear your thoughts about this mindset that I'm responsible to save everybody.
It is pervasive in our field that every new clinician, I cannot tell you of any single new clinician that has not had that thought. No matter how many times we tell them it's not realistic, no matter how many times we tell them our stories and share with them our experiences. I was a recipient of somebody who shared their very deep personal experience with me around this very subject at the very beginning of my training, and it still happens, right? We still feel like we can save the world. That's our job. Our job is to work ourselves out of work. That's what we want to to do. We don't want to have mental health services. We want everyone to be healthy and stable and social and functional and thriving, right? We want to work ourselves out of work, but that's unrealistic. We're not going to ever work ourselves out of work because people are contextual. Life is contextual. It changes all of the time. We've seen massive changes in our world in the last, in the last year, let alone the last, 6, 7 years, right? We've seen massive changes in our world. And so how do we keep up with that? Well, you can't get in front of it because you don't really know what's coming. You can guess what's coming, but you really don't know what's coming until it's here. So you can never get in front of that. And so really just keeping that mindset of, I'm going to do the best that I can with what I can do, but understanding that nobody can change you. Like I know for myself, somebody's trying to change me. It's not going to happen until I'm ready to do it. And thinking that I can force somebody else to do something differently that maybe isn't ready is unrealistic. And so really just kind of looking at yourself and understanding how you function as a human, as a person, not as a therapist, but as an individual person will help you to understand and have a little more compassion for yourself as a therapist too, because you're dealing with humans and people that are very different from what your therapist brain thinks they should be.
I love that. I love that because I sit there and I just think about, again, all the wonderful mentorship I had and the reminders of this not being able to save. And that's really not our role anyway, right? That's just not our role. I think recently somebody caught me saying this, our role is to hold space and to plant seeds and to allow the clients to find themselves in this process as we hold that space and give some tools, offer some tools. So this is really powerful given we kind of put the whole thing together, given in light of, you know, lack of funding, lack of services, overworked, overburdened, neophyte counselors who want to save the world and trying to convince them that our superpower is to be human. Our superpower is to hold space. Our superpower is not to go and wave a wand and make it all better and then carry your problem, my problem, everybody's problem back to our homes. I'm just dumbfounded the many, many years that I've been in counselor ed. How do we get this message to the students? What are some of the ways you're doing it, Dr. Curry?
We got to stop sugarcoating. We've got
Yeah.
to stop sugarcoating what reality looks like for our students. We do a lot of hand holding with our students. We do a lot of navigating alongside them, which is great. We're supposed to do that. Sometimes they need to be kind of thrown into the fire, if you will, for a minute. They need to have those little bumps and those experiences. We, as clinicians first, right, and educators alongside that, we have a tendency to want to save our students sometimes because we understand where they've been. We understand the difficulty and we look at, okay, they're new to this. They don't really know how to navigate this. So let's save them. We don't say save them. We say let's help them, but we end up saving them. So sometimes we need to be a little more direct and less coddling, if you will, of our students in order for them to have those experiences or to have some sense of that experience. And I'm not saying to abandon them entirely, but we definitely need to put a little more accountability onto students and let them bump their heads a little bit more than we tend to do.
I love that because she's talking about resiliency building. I love that. Take it, Jason. Oh
Yes,
my
indeed.
goodness.
In addition to that, I mean, this is inside the session. We already inside, like we all the way inside because what you're sharing is so honest and it's so real. And I have to be honest, I never connected dots of the parallels, but it makes perfect sense. As helping professionals, to me, I like to summarize things and make it simple. And the simplistic way of looking at this profession, people who get into it are for two reasons: someone helped them or they didn't. And I just can't see it any other way. And what I hear from what you're sharing that I never thought about is, even as a counselor educator, our students, we may treat like clients, coddling, hand holding, and our stuff, our trauma, we see in our students because there was one point in time we were there. So we do help. We do that extra. We may do that hand hold, not recognizing it, but our colleagues may recognize it because they've been there, done that, or they just see things from a different lens. And you're talking about it, Dr. Curry, and I love it because I don't know a lot of environments where we can talk about this. I don't know a lot of environments where we can be honest and humble enough to talk about our stuff inside the session. So I'm curious, with this mindset, this perspective, how do we as counselor educators, how do we as clinicians, helping professionals, how do we get better at allowing people room to evolve, allowing people room to make mistakes and fumble and not get that, extra help. But the resilience that Dr. Fisher is talking about, like how do we do that more as educators?
Well, I think we have to going back to a counselor's lens. We always say to, put your client's message and put the work back in the client's lap. We need to do the same with our students. Put the work back in their lap, right? So I work a lot with our clinical training students. And so a lot of times I'll tell them, yes, I can contact your site. Yes, I can reach out to your supervisor. And yes, I can navigate this for you. But to encourage you to navigate this yourself first. And then if we need to loop me in, then we can loop me in and I can help assist you in what this might look like or assist you in the process. Instead of automatically jumping in and saying, okay, I'm the faculty supervisor. I need to jump in here and mitigate this challenge and touch base with the site to make sure that there's not a miscommunication here or a disconnect, really putting it back on the students and coaching the students through what that might look like, right? Giving them some advice and how they can approach it with their site, how they can, offer up this information or get clarification or offering our insight as to what might be missing, right? From our own experiences. Well, in the past, sometimes sites just don't understand this or students don't think to share this with their site, different things like that, but really making the student who is not our client, but kind of our client in this situation, making them do the work first. And then once they've done the work and it fails, then we can step in and help assist alongside instead of on behalf of. It's like our advocacy, right? You can advocate on behalf of or alongside. I would rather advocate alongside than on behalf of any of our students because that's empowering for them, right? It gives them voice, it gives them experience that they can carry on into their future careers as well.
We in the kitchen now because you cooking, okay? We are in the kitchen because you are cooking. I love it. I'm so here for it. So I'm curious, a couple more, and I feel like I'm just asking two questions at a time because there's so much I want to ask, I want to know. I'll try to slow down a bit because everything you're saying, all of this aligns. Everything that we're talking about, it all connects with this profession. And I'm curious to know about the stigma, the stereotype, the barriers within this profession of people not going, people don't stay, or people, just looking at therapy in a way that is this taboo, I don't do. And especially now in 2026 with social media and the political climate, like so many things happening, I feel as though now is the best time for as many people as possible to consider therapy, but we don't. So just curious, your thoughts about the barriers, stereotype, and stigma around this profession, and how do we overcome it?
So the stereotypes and stigma, I actually had hope, right, that these things were starting to minimize because we had a lot of our public personalities really focused around mental health. We have a lot of Hollywood personalities that actually have nonprofit and NGOs that are supporting and trying to decrease stigma, right? Supporting mental health, getting the word out, psychoeducation, helping people understand this is a thing that everyone goes through and it's not a bad thing, right? It's just a thing, just we have to deal with this. And so I had hopes that that was going away and that the stigma was minimizing. However, the bigger problem now is that we have pseudo clinicians, if you will, right? We're in an age where folks are using AI, which AI is great. AI has its place in our world, but people are using AI as a therapist, and that's terrifying because it can only do so much, right? And we've seen the horror stories of what can happen from teenagers and adolescents that are reaching out and using AI as their therapist, and the outcome is not at all what would happen in real therapy, right? The outcome is often very grave and very negative. So I see that as being one of our biggest challenges currently. I don't think the stigma is still there, but I think the stigma has shifted. It's gone from I'm not crazy, I don't go to therapy to I don't need a therapist. A therapist is a waste of time. I've got Chat GPT or I've got, Claude or I've got social media. Like I have my own therapist. And that's what I think we're up against now is the stigma that our job is not real because there are automated versions of us, but those automated versions of us are lacking that human component. They're lacking those nuances that people really need, that human connection. We're in a world where human connection is becoming less and less. People are not communicating with each other. Children are not being socialized. There's a whole generation of children that are being socialized through a screen. They're not being socialized individually and in person. So to them, they don't understand or don't know what it means to actually sit in front of somebody and be vulnerable, to sit in front of somebody and share emotions or even have the language for emotions. So I think that's where we're up against our biggest challenge now. The stigma isn't that mental health isn't a thing. Mental health is very much a thing. But therapists, are they really necessary? Because I can go get this online anywhere.
I love that. I love that you brought that up because I was sitting there thinking, we're talking about the gaps in mental health right now, and how are people and organizations trying to fill the gaps. And you're right, looking at these shortcuts in AI. And as much as I love my AI assistant Maggie, Maggie is wrong. Every day there's something that Maggie is wrong about. And even today, in helping me edit an email that was very clear, it was a very clear email, but where I said yes, Maggie said no. So I'm like, Maggie, I didn't say no. So I think, to your point, so many great points, that we're losing sight of how to be human with other humans. We're losing sight of how to be vulnerable with other humans. And that's part of how we're seeing the world interact here and now, is not knowing what to do with our vulnerabilities and others. So that's amazing. Thank you for that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And you mentioned these pseudo therapists. You went there again, back in the kitchen. So if you could, if you could tell us, like, what's the difference? How do you know when somebody's a real clinician and somebody who's not, or pseudo? Licensure. What does that look like? Like, for people that's listening to the show that even are helping professionals, or those who may not be, how do you determine who's who? What's a good fit? What's the best fit for me? Who do I choose? Would I not? Any insight would be helpful.
Every state has a way to check for licensure, right? Every state has a public access website where you can go and see if your clinician actually is a licensed clinician or not. We have a lot of folks that call themselves counselors that are not counselors. They're counselors in the sense of that's what they're just saying, and they may be doing some of the work, but they're doing it very differently, right? There's no formal training behind that. They don't understand the nuances. They don't understand the technique. There's actually a technique behind mental health. Like, we do the work. And so there's that piece of it. But you can go out and check and see if your clinician is licensed or not. If they're not licensed, ask. Ask your clinician. Clinicians are supposed to have their license posted and available to you. Just ask them, are you actually a clinician? Do you have a license? And if they do, and you still feel like, I don't know if I still want to double check and make sure that license is valid, because we can, copy anything anymore. We can make documents all the time. But you can go in and check and see if they're licensed through your state board, licensing boards. You just want to make sure it's a good fit. So good. Go ahead.
Twofold. Good fit. Yes, we want to hear more. And the second thing, because right now, currently, this is a really hot topic related to people who say they're something they're not. And I'm curious, like, what does a client do if a client asks for validation? Hey, could you show me your license? Could you show me your doctorate? Could you show me your credentials? And a clinician refuses. What could a client do in that situation, as well as fit? If you could talk about both of those.
Yeah, that's a huge red flag in and of itself, right? If a clinician is refusing to show you their credentials, they're likely not credentialed in any shape or form. So I think that's a big red flag. Ethically, we have a responsibility to share our credentials and to assure our clients that we are qualified to do what we do, right? We have to make sure that our scope of practice, that we know our scope of practice as well as our clients do. So not showing your credentials or not being willing to, that's a problem. And that's something that I would strongly urge clients that have a clinician that does not have credentials to question them. Say, okay, you don't want to show me your credentials, so does this mean you're not credentialed? Doesn't mean that I don't like you and that I don't like doing some work with you, but I need to know what I'm working with here, right? Ask those questions. Get deep and go quick. Those hard questions, you don't get the answers to the hard questions if you never ask them. So asking those questions is important here. And then as far as finding fit, like you want a clinician that's going to fit with you culturally, personality wise, and their training. If you're coming in for trauma work and you have a clinician that, let's say, they refuse to show you credentials, they're likely not eligible, certified, or qualified in any way to provide you with the trauma support that you deserve, right? The work that you need to do. And so there's that piece of it as well. You want to make sure that your clinician is a good fit for you, and always you want to feel comfortable, not too comfortable. Like you say, kikiing and having a good conversation is one thing, but you want to be a little bit uncomfortable because change comes with discomfort. That's just part of the process. So if you're too comfortable with your clinician, you're probably not doing a lot of work, and it might be a good idea to move to a different clinician. Your clinician can be great. They can be a good person. They can be doing all the right things. But if you're too comfortable with them, you're not doing the work, and it's time to move on to someone that's going to poke you a little bit and have you feel a little bit uncomfortable every now and then so that you can get some work done. So those are my two things there with fit. And as far as credentialing, if someone doesn't want to show you their credentials, run. That's a huge red flag.
Absolutely, absolutely. So also, I'm just kind of curious. So, just for those more sage counselors out there who have been doing this for a long time and just like to pop in and see what the heck, Jason and Cheryl are doing for the week. So, there's many of us who've been in the field for a long time, 1, 2, maybe even 3 decades. And there is an element of complacency that comes along. And so, what advice do you have for the counselor who's gotten real comfortable with being real comfortable? Yeah, kind of poke the bear a little bit on that one, Dr. Curry.
Yeah. That's where our mindfulness needs to kick in, right? We're constantly self evaluating, or we're supposed to be constantly self evaluating. And so it's a reminder, hey, if you're too comfortable with your client and that's more of your friend, right? Like Dr. Branch said earlier, that's more of your friend. That's no longer a client. And that's a problem. So you want to make sure that if you're getting too comfortable with being too comfortable, it's time to change things up. It's time to shift. And this happens. I've seen it happen with clients that have shared how they were with their therapist for a long time. They feel like they didn't really do much work in the last year that they were together, and the therapist never actually terminated with them. The client decided they wanted to make a change. That's problematic. It's not uncommon. It's something that, we do so much heavy work and so much uncomfortable work ourselves with clients that when we have an easy client that feels comfortable to work with, that's almost like our break from all the difficult clients. That shouldn't be your break, right? You need to find other ways to take your break. If you have a client that is your break time or your enjoyment time and not work time, it's time to reevaluate what your role is and what work is really being done in that session and whether it's even ethical to continue working with that client or not. So it happens. It happens to the best of us, but there's ways to, work through that and become a better clinician on the other side of it.
Phenomenal. You just unloading, okay? You just giving us so much information that's so helpful. It's so honest, it's real, it's authentic, and that's why this show is so important. We go behind the session, we go inside the session and share these experiences because a lot of people don't get access. A lot of people don't get to hear these stories and this truth, especially from us as clinicians because of the facade. Sometimes it's this belief that I have to present myself a certain way in order to be a good therapist. And the reality is, this authenticity, to me, is what makes us great. It's humanizing who we are. We're not robots. We're not perfect. We're not Freud. I don't look nothing like him. So therefore, I can't act like I'm somebody I'm not. Let me be okay with being me, flaws and all. And that's what you're talking about. And to me, like, that's what makes a difference in this profession. So we got a few minutes left. Before we get out of here, I'm curious to know things that you've done, things that you're doing, products, services. How can people get in contact? How can people connect? What you doing out here? Because you're doing a lot. Over 20 years in this profession, you got a lot going. So we want to know more. And what would you like to share with the listeners?
Yeah. Well, currently academic based, that's my primary function right now. Well, I can't say primary. It's alongside primary and community mental health, right? So I do have a nonprofit organization, Unseen Excess. There's my plug for Unseen Excess that we co-founded several years ago. And we do a lot of community-based work, a lot of psychoeducation. We did a lot of research and still continue to focus on refugee and forced transmigration and the work that goes in behind that, because that's a whole different demographic from our just typical community mental health based folks. And that's a demographic that's sadly growing internationally, and we do work internationally as well. So we have that going on. I've got some books in the works that are in process and in published, articles in the works and presentations. So just kind of staying busy and staying relevant. But if you want to reach out to me, the easiest way to reach out to me would be through my website, which is unseenexcess.com. It's a very easy website, not hard to find and spelled just like it sounds, UNSEENXS.com. Or you can reach out to me through the Alliant emails and websites, which is, kristen.curry@alliant.edu. That's probably one of the easier ways to get in touch with me because that email is going off every single day, multiple times a day. So that's a place that gets checked pretty frequently. But those are kind of the things that we're doing. So just expanding our community base, expanding our mental health services and support, even in an environment where financials are questionable and dwindling, just doing our best to reach as many people as we possibly can. Like I said, I live in California and we have a lot of community-based mental health services out here. But I recently moved into a community that has not increased the mental health footprint as far as services in the last 30 years. So there's a real need in this community. And so looking to expand in this community and really kind of set a footprint here that's going to continue to grow and be able to support some of the areas that really need it. There's still a lot of thinking here that mental health isn't something that we do. It's not something that we engage in. There's even resistance to AI and technology. So it's a very different community to be in than where I was before. So definitely want to make sure that we expand the services here for folks and be able to reach out and get folks engaged, not just the consumers of mental health, but getting community members that are maybe considering life as a clinician and going on to become clinicians and becoming clinicians. Don't leave the area. You can stay right here. The need is here. The services can be here too. So really looking at that piece because a lot of folks tend to get their education and move on. And I don't blame them. I don't blame them. They all have their own reasons, right? But if we can get some folks to get their education and stay, I think would be really helpful.
This is some amazing work you're doing. I am so excited. I can't wait to go. I did write down the name of your website. I can't wait to go and look and I hope our listeners will take the time to reach out to you, especially if they are interested in supporting your organization as well as maybe becoming a clinical counselor. You would be a great mentor and guide to get them into our program, of course. One of the things I think I want to just plug a little bit more as you talked about a book in the works, or can you tell us a little bit more? I mean, you piqued my curiosity, Dr. Curry.
Yeah.
What you writing about?
So currently it's doing cross-cultural research and what that looks like, right? It's been done before as far as certain modalities, but using hermeneutic phenomenology is the primary modality because it captures the essence of the individual story and minimizes our own bias and our own knowing because we're learning alongside our research participants, right? In that sense. So when we're looking at cross-cultural research as a whole, it works really great in refugee populations and things like that. But it works across cultural as a whole because realistically, we have a lot of different people living in the United States in large numbers. They're not all from Western European histories. Most are not, right? And
Hmm.
so we need to look at how do we navigate that when realistically a large body of our current researchers and folks with PhDs are of Western European descent. And what does that look like when you're doing work with people that are very different from you? How do you do that work? How do you do that research in a way that minimizes your own bias and your own experience and holds integrity to what they're doing? So that's what the book is right now that's going into print. And then I've got another one that I'm looking at too that's actually crisis and trauma work. So we'll see where that
Love
one lands.
that. I
We
can't
we
wait.
we trying to close the show out. You trying to open us back up. Listen, you trying to because for a moment, just for a moment, because you started it, Dr. Curry. You started this. What I hear is cultural humility in learning how to be open and check your own biases. If you don't mind, before we get out of here, because this is really important, I don't want to lose it. Could you share more with us, especially for new clinicians coming in, people that's been seasoned, been in for a while, like understanding the differences of people? Could you talk more with us about that? And what does that look like? And how can somebody do that work that you're writing about?
Yeah. Understanding that everyone is different. Everyone has their own story, even if they look just like you. They have their own story. They have their own history, their own makeup. They're things that helped shape them to be the people that they are in that moment in time. And you get to be a part of that shaping for who they get to be tomorrow and the next day, right? So it's really an honor and a privilege to be able to work with folks different from ourselves because we're not only learning from them, but we're also able to share with them, right? And so we become better people. They become different people after having these encounters with us. So for us to maintain cultural humility and to really do the work, you have to embed yourself in cultures that are different. If it feels weird and uncomfortable, good. It should be because that means you're learning something. You're learning something that doesn't align with what you already know. And that's a good thing. You're broadening your horizons. You're expanding your knowledge base. And we need to do more of that and do it with intentionality, not just, oh, I just happened upon this and it was kind of nice, but actively seeking these events, even seeking literature, looking at websites, watching videos. YouTube is our friend. Yes, YouTube can be a mess because AI is a thing and you can have some really weird videos out there, but you can also get some really great cultural experience and exposure there as well. Not necessarily to make you an expert, but to open your eyes up to that the world is beautiful and broad and it's so varied and so diverse and so much joy in the world that we don't even know how to experience or how to express because we haven't been exposed to it. So, really intentionally going out and seeking these differences for ourselves so that we can learn a little bit more and be a little bit more receptive and open and able, right, to learn more.
Whew, Dr. Curry, in that kitchen, cooking. Thank you for that last piece. We needed it. We needed all of that. So thank you for that. Dr. Fisher, any final thoughts before we get out of here?
There's so many nuggets. So I thank you so much, Dr. Curry, for joining us and sharing so much of yourself with us. And again, to the listeners, Dr. Curry is one of the amazing talent here at the Alliance Masters in Clinical Counseling program. This is just one of the many, many, many amazing individuals who are part of what makes us tick. And we just are so grateful for you providing us with your time and your talents today, so that I know I'm taking away some nuggets from you, and I know our listeners are as well. So thank you so much.
Absolutely. Any final thoughts, Dr. Curry, before we get out?
I just want to thank you again for this opportunity. I think this is wonderful what's happening here. It's good to have a space where folks can get like the real story, the real talk, the real conversations, because that's important. We get a lot of fluff in this world. So having these real conversations is important. And I hope somebody got a little uncomfortable today because that means they're going to do something differently tomorrow.
Absolutely. Without a doubt. You have blessed us. You blessed me. I mean, you heard it from us. You're blessing us. And we family. We together. We work together. And we're still able to get some new insight, new information because it connects to exposure, which is what you mentioned. So thank you so much for being on the show. Thank you for blessing us, the listeners. Thank you all for listening. Thank you for tuning in, paying attention, getting some of this information, writing these notes down, doing the work, working on you, and being present, showing up for yourself as well as other people. This has been another episode of Inside the Session. Thank you all for joining us. Until next episode, because we slowing down, family. This is episode 6 coming up. We got a total of 8 episodes to finish out season 1. So you are in for a treat because we're going to close out with a bang. Dr. Fisher.
Dr. Branch, this is just as good a time as any. Say that our next be prepared, be on the lookout for our next episode where we will be talking about internal family systems, but not like anybody else has ever talked about internal family systems, because we will be with the wonderful, great Dr. Kat Araya. So stay tuned for another fun episode.
Yes, indeed. I love it. I love it. Thank y'all for tuning in. Have a good night, good day, good week, good life. Peace.